Thank you for being my audience and taking the time to listen to my speech. The object of this speech is to critique a historic speech. Women's rights are human rights. This quote, said by Hillary Clinton at the 4th United Nations Conference on Women in Beijing, China, on September 5th, 1995, became a very famous quote. The quote became the title of the speech, and the words echoed around the world. Ms. Clinton clearly and powerfully advocates for the continued achievement of equal rights for women all around the world. The purpose of the speech was not so much to be a persuasive speech. Everyone in her audience prescribed to her point of view. It was an extremely inspirational and empowering speech for those who believe in this fight and want to continue it. Ms. Clinton is an outstanding speaker and an outstanding orator who employs excellent use of language and literary techniques in her speeches. First and foremost in this speech was the use of the phrase, "Women's rights are human rights." This phrase stays with the listener long after the speech ends, and it sums up the message of the speech. Almost every memorable speech in history has a phrase such as this that stays with the listeners long after the speech is over. In addition to this phrase, Ms. Clinton uses other literary techniques throughout the speech, such as quoting statistics, her own personal experience to strengthen her points, the rule of threes, repetition, and finally expressing the fears, attitudes, and hopes of her audience. The use of statistics in the speech is minimal. At one point only does Ms. Clinton quote statistics. She emphasizes that women are more than half the world's population, 70% of the working poor, and that 2/3 of the women of the world are not taught to read and write. More than just numbers, though, Ms. Clinton emphasizes the role of women all over the world in all different capacities, as well as the discrimination and injustices that they receive. Repetition is used to provide emphasis of the various ways women are abused and kept down in the world. The following is a clip from her speech. It shows the power and effectiveness the use of repetition can have, as well as the power of the phrase that Ms. Clinton chose.
Rights. When babies are denied food or drowned or suffocated or their spines broken simply because they are born girls. It is a violation of human rights when women and girls are sold into the slavery of prostitution for human greed, and the kinds of reasons that are used to justify this practice should no longer be tolerated. It is a violation of human rights when women are doused with gasoline, set on fire, and burned to death because their marriage dowries are deemed too small. It is a violation of human rights.
The rule of threes is another technique used in most effective speeches as a way of emphasis. Ms. Clinton quotes, "It is a coming together, much the way women come together every day in every country. We come together in fields and factories, in village markets and supermarkets, in living rooms and in boardrooms. We come together and talk about our aspirations and concerns." The words "we come together" are said 3 times, and there are 3 groups of ways women come together. This creates a feeling of camaraderie among women and the feeling that together we can accomplish anything. Finally, the speech is effective since it appeals to women from all backgrounds from all over the world. Clinton expresses the hopes, attitudes, and fears of every woman in her audience when she says we share a common future, and we are here to find common ground so that we may help bring new dignity and respect to women and girls all over the world. In addition, Clinton appeals to governments and men to recognize how working on women's issues will affect their issues as well and help benefit a country as a whole. She emphasizes that only when women are healthy, educated, and treated with dignity will countries flourish. As far as criticisms of this speech, Clinton avoided the use of strong language when it comes to denouncing crimes against women due to religious beliefs. This may have been intentional since it was at the UN, and they didn't want to inflame people at the UN who actually commit these crimes, or to inflame the passions of countries that we are allies to. In addition, Hillary's words have power, but her demeanor is somewhat flat and impassionate. The use of verbal imagery and becoming more passionate in her voice would increase the intensity of the speech. Also, there was no suggestions for improvement in this speech. This might have been intentional since it was an introduction to a conference, and this may be addressed later on in the conference. The conclusion of the speech was a call to action, a call to do our part to create a world in which women are treated with respect, dignity, and fairness. Overall, this was a very powerful speech. It is impossible to listen to the speech and not be affected by it, and not want to go home and do whatever we can to contribute to fighting for equal rights for women in this world.